Iran's threat to set ships ablaze in one of the world's busiest trade routes is raising some concerns about the implications for the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical oil shipping route that links the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and eventually the Arabian Sea. Now, it's bordered by Iran to its north and the UAE and Oman to its south. Two of the world's largest shippers have already suspended travel through the strait. Large tankers typically sail through with around 20 million barrels of oil every single day. That's according to a U.S. Energy Information Administration report. And more than a quarter of all oil traveling by ocean and a fifth of global liquefied natural gas flows through that strait alone. Joining us now is Matt Smith, head U.S. analyst at Kpler data and analytics firm. Matt, how important is the Strait of Hormuz to the global energy market?
It's massive, Liz, and you were just showing the numbers there. Right now, we see 100 ships passing through this every single day. You've got, as you mentioned, there's sort of 15 million barrels a day going through this. And so at its widest point, it's about, its narrowest point is about 20 miles there. So this is hugely concerning. And it's all manner of different commodities that are passing through this. So as we have seen this grinding to a halt here, these flows, that's why you're seeing commodity prices increasing. And so it's not just an oil story here. We've seen diesel prices really ramping up, gasoline prices, but in particular, natural gas prices in Europe. So it is being felt across commodities and across the world.
Now, it's important to note, Matt, that the U.S. doesn't rely on the Strait of Hormuz for its oil, but yet we almost immediately saw a change with the price at the pump. And now President Trump is offering to escort ships through the passage. Why is the Strait of Hormuz a priority for the U.S.?
Yeah, sure. So we bring in a little bit of oil, so maybe 500,000 barrels a day. In the grand scheme of things, that isn't a massive amount of that 15 million we see passing through there. But your price at the pump at your local gas station there is mostly influenced by the oil price, and the oil price is influenced by global factors. So as we're seeing oil prices on a global basis here rallying like crazy, that is being reflected through quickly to prices at the pump. So we've seen them jump sort of 7% in the last day or so. And that will continue to increase. It plays catch up a little bit. And so even though the US is very much insulated from a supply perspective, because we refine our own oil, we produce our own gasoline, we have our own natural gas, etc., we are not insulated from the pricing.
Now, a blockade, though, of the strait was really hitting Asian countries much harder. The U.S. Energy Information Administration says more than 80% of all oil and gas shipments through the strait go to Asian nations. China, India, Japan, and South Korea are the largest buyers. China, as we know, is an ally of Iran, and they get about half of their crude oil imports through that Strait of Hormuz. Are they concerned about ships not being able to pass through? They have to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned they get half of their crude from the Middle East there. That's about 5 million barrels a day there. And so China is insulated in the perspective that they have a lot of inventory. So they have like 1.2 billion barrels of inventories. But by all means, the lack of this supply, even just for a few days is going to have an impact, let alone if it goes on for a number of weeks. Same thing with Iran, right? So we're hearing that Iran may be trying to close the strait there. It's going to fire missiles at tankers, but all of Iran's crude basically passes through the Strait of Hormuz. All of that goes to China as well. So those barrels not flowing means that Iran is not getting revenue either. And the other thing to bear in mind too is that we could say, oh, well, this for the US is a side swipe at China, right? Because if the strait is closed, then it's hurting them. But at the same time, if you just think about oil as one big bucket of supply, cutting off those flows is just going to increase the price of oil. And that's the last thing that President Trump wants when he wants prices at the pump to be low. And so that's why he is pushing for these insurance waivers or coverage and for this convoy for the Strait of Hormuz there.
Matt, is there potential for the Middle East shutting off oil production altogether if these tankers are not able to get through the Strait of Hormuz?
Maybe not altogether, Liz, we're already starting to see some countries shutting in, so the likes of Iraq. And the situation is they are massive producers of these commodities, massive exporters of oil, and yet they don't have a lot of storage because they just simply send this all out. And you've got a situation now where that crude is just building up and building up on tankers within the Mideast Gulf there. And you're not able to get empty tankers in to load up either. So the situation we're getting to in the coming days here is these producers likely having to dial back their production, shut in their oil fields because there's nowhere else for this oil to go.
Thank you so much. Always good to talk to you.